Thank you to Hasselblad for sponsoring this video. Today I'm doing something I've never done before. We're switching things up. I'm shooting on a completely different camera in a completely different format, and I'm excited to see what happens. If you're new to the channel, my name is Hippolyte. I'm a fashion photographer, and today I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes as we try out the new lightweight portrait kit from Hasselblad. If you don't know about Hasselblad, they're a Swedish company that makes medium format cameras. They're particularly famous for their analog medium format cameras with the waist level viewfinder. They've been around for hundreds of years, you've probably seen them. They were kind enough to send over a kit for me to try out, which includes the X2D 100C medium format camera and two lenses. The XCD 45mm f4, which is similar in focal length to around a 35mm on your typical full frame camera, and the 80mm f1.9, which is equivalent to around 63mm on a full frame 35mm camera. These two lenses together are supposed to be versatile enough to work in a bunch of different portrait scenarios, whether you're indoors or outdoors. Now, this is my first time using the kit, and to be fair, I'm gonna shoot how I usually shoot, in the studio with a mixture of close-up portraits and full body shots. So that's what we're gonna be doing today, and if you wanna see how it turns out, just keep on watching. So the inspiration for the shoot, it's June now, summer is here. I wanted to do something that encapsulated that feeling of a hot, sticky summer, that unbearable heat that makes you feel almost uncomfortable and a bit frustrated. That's what we wanted to bring to life in the studio. So we shot on this mandarin orange colorama, and we oiled up the model and sprayed some water on her to create that dewy, slightly sweaty kind of look. For this first setup, we used 5 lights. Yes, 5, don't kill me, they all have a purpose. 2 lights shot into white umbrellas, placed one on top of the other as the key light on the model. This is gonna give us a nice even light from one side that still has some contrast. For the fill, we used a silver umbrella, which is gonna fill in those shadows but also pick up on the dewy highlights on the skin and give the image a bit of a glowy kind of look. We then used a hair light, which is just a reflector with a grid. The grid is going to focus the light and stop it from spilling everywhere, and this is just gonna give us a nice outline and separate the model from the backdrop. And then finally, we illuminated the backdrop with just one light with a reflector with an orange gel, which is gonna give us a nice highlight on that one side of the frame and create a kind of gradient style background. So for these first few shots, I started off using the 80mm lens. It's a decent size, but not too heavy. And I really like it because it has a good amount of compression, which flatters the subject and allows you to get up close portraits, but also shoot some mid shots as well. This lens does go all the way down to f1.9. So it's really good for natural light and low light environments, but it also allows you to get some really good bokeh and isolate your subject with that shallow depth of field as well. So let's talk about this kit a little bit. I've got the camera right here. This is the X2D 100C from Hasselblad. And this camera is really beautiful. I think it has a really beautiful design. It feels classic, but modern at the same time. And it feels very, very premium. It's got a metal body, which feels really nice to hold. The grip feels really good. It's quite minimal in terms of buttons. There's not too many buttons on the top. We've just got our shutter button, our mode button, and then a quick change button for the ISO and white balance. And then of course our power button as well. We've got a small screen on the top, which you can see your shooting information, your shutter speed, aperture, ISO, things like that. And on the back, it's very, very minimal. We've got this huge touch screen here, and then just a few buttons down the side of the screen. It's very large, it's very high quality, and it also does tilt as well. So it tilts into 2 positions, which means that if you did want to use it at that kind of waist level height, you can. So it just gives you a little bit more flexibility there as well. We also have an OLED electronic viewfinder as well, which is really good resolution. In terms of internals, we're looking at an 100 megapixel sensor here, IBIS, 16-bit color depth, 15-stop dynamic range. And also something that really impressed me was that this has a built-in 1TB SSD, which is great for handling those really large file sizes because we are working with 100 megapixels here. So your file sizes are going to be really large, and having that inbuilt SSD just means that you can preview your photos a lot faster, you can transfer files a lot faster to your computer. It also has a CF Express card slot and a USB-C input as well. So it does feel very minimal in design, very Scandinavian, and I quite like it. It's clean, it's refreshing. After we got those closer portraits, I decided to go a bit wider and shoot with the 45mm lens. Now, you could shoot some close-up portraits with this as well. It being a wider focal length, you're gonna get some distortion, but you could play around with that in terms of your posing and get some really dramatic and energetic type shots. But what's also really nice about this as a portrait lens is that you can capture more environmental portraits and help to tell more of a story by including more of the scene around the subject in the image. The lens is really small and lightweight. It's about the size of your typical sort of nifty 50 type lens. And although it goes down to f4, because you're shooting on a medium format sensor, you're still able to get a good amount of shallow depth of field, somewhere around the equivalent of f3.2. For this second look, we switched the lighting up and went for more of an overhead setup. The key was a large white umbrella with diffusion overhead on a boom arm, and then we filled this in and added some catch lights to the eyes, just using another strobe with a smaller white umbrella in front of the model. And finally, we added 2 lights this time onto the background, just to light it up a bit more and continue that gradient style effect. This camera creates huge image files with a lot of detail, which gives you a bit more flexibility in post. The higher resolution allows you to print extremely large images, which is great for commercial work or maybe fine art prints, things like that. But it also gives you the freedom to crop your images without worrying about loss of quality or loss of resolution, because there's just so much resolution to begin with. A lot of the images I shot on the 45mm lens actually have the whole studio in the background, but I'm able to just crop in and focus on the model and not worry about losing the quality of the image. When we took these photos on the bright orange background with the bold blue hat and the model's deep skin tone, I was really impressed with how the colors translated on screen and how they felt vibrant but still natural and true to life. The fact that we had so much dynamic range to play with as well meant that there was a lot more information in the shadows and the highlights, which made the photos a lot easier to color grade and adjust the exposure in post. So for the third setup, we went for a zoom reflector as our key light, and we added a snoot made out of black cinefoil, which is going to create sort of an abstract pattern on the model's upper body. For the lower body, we added a touch of focused light using a reflector with a grid. For the hair light, we opted for a silver umbrella with a CTO gel, which is going to spread the light a bit more evenly across the scene. And we also lit the background as before. These shots are a little bit tricky because we were trying to capture some movement with the model and these like knitted tassels on the dress, but we're also working with very spotty, specific lighting. So it was difficult for everything to kind of line up in the right place, but I think we got some good shots in the end. So what are my thoughts on the lightweight portrait kit from Hasselblad? Well, first of all, I'm in love with medium format, and I also love shooting at this aspect ratio because it felt a lot easier to compose my images, and I knew that I had a lot more freedom with cropping as well. The image quality is incredible, the color rendering is incredible, the Hasselblad natural color solution is great, gives you great colors straight out of camera, whether you're shooting in RAW or JPEG without any need for any presets or anything like that. If you shoot with flash like me, this camera can actually sync up to 1/2000th of a second, which means that you can shoot outdoors with flash at low apertures, and expose properly and still sync up with your flash, which is really great and really unique. Unfortunately, I didn't get to try it on this shoot, but it's something I'd definitely like to try next time. The 18mm lens was definitely my favorite out of the two. It was very sharp. The fact that it can go all the way down to f1.9 makes it really versatile, and it was also really flattering on the subject. The 45mm lens is great for those environmental portraits or when you're working in a smaller space and don't have enough room to sort of step back and shoot at a longer focal length. I think this is really useful and makes the kit a lot more versatile. One issue I did run into was with the autofocus. My shoots are very fast paced, and I found that I kind of had to slow down. I couldn't shoot away like I usually do, which isn't terrible because I was able to hone in and shoot a little bit more with intention. It almost felt a little bit like shooting on film in a way, because I was taking more time to get my shots and making sure that everything was composed and in focus. But I would like to see some improvements to the autofocus system, hopefully with some sort of face tracking or eye tracking system. So that is the behind the scenes on this summer, hot, sweaty editorial shoot. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as always. Thank you to Hasselblad for sponsoring this video and sending over the kit for me to try out. If you do want to check it out, I've put a link in the description. For more of my work, follow me on Instagram at IanHippo. And to see more photography content and more behind the scenes videos like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.